1966, in Cincinnati, Ohio, there was a population of 10,305,000 people. There were 462 murders in that year in Cincinnati. Today we are talking about 3 of those murders, the Bricca family murders. On Tuesday, September 27th, 1966, neighbors of the Briccas started noticing odd things at the Bricca home. Jerry hadn't brought in the trash cans from the curb. Their next door neighbor, Richard Meyer, threw a local newspaper on the front porch, but no one had retrieved it. The couple's 2 vehicles sat in the driveway and on the street in front of the home, unmoved for 2 days. The Myers tried calling the Briccas. No one answered. Richard Meyer walked over to their home and noticed the front door ajar. Gerald, nicknamed Jerry Bricca, 26. His wife Linda was 23 and their daughter Debbie was 4. Were found slain inside their home September 27th, 1966. Jerry Bricca was last seen alive September 25th, 1966, as he placed garbage cans on the curb outside the family's home on 3381 Greenway Avenue. Jerry, his wife Linda, and their 4-year-old daughter Debbie had relocated from Seattle to Cincinnati after Jerry had received a job transfer. Dick Meyer, a concerned neighbor, tried calling Jerry at work. Meyer learned that Jerry hadn't shown up to work in 2 days. Meyer's wife encouraged him to go contact the neighbor and to go visit the Bricca home to make sure that everyone was okay. After opening the door to the home, Meyer, who was a World War II vet, recognized the smell of death. He shut the door and called the police. And that's where the police found the family in the home dead or deceased. Someone had brutally murdered the entire family. Jerry had 9 stab wounds, Linda had 8, and Debbie had 4 stab wounds. Debbie's stab wounds were so vicious they went completely through her body. The police found Jerry and Linda Bricca dead in their bedroom, and Debbie was found in her bedroom. Also, the killer stuffed a sock in Jerry's mouth. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office launched a massive investigation. They interviewed at least 400 people.
Jane. She's originally from the Chicago, Illinois area, and she attended Elgin High School there, and also National College of Education. In the Illinois area. Her father's name is Adolph Bulaw, and the only address we can come up with so far is Barrington Hills, Illinois. Gerald, the deceased husband, graduated from Stanford University from all indications. They were married in Barrington Hills. Linda Jane attended airline hostess school, United Airlines, in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and her first assignment apparently was Seattle, Washington.
Can you say whether you have what you consider to be any good leads or clues in this case at this point? Gene?
I can't say at this point.
Where were the victims found?
Mr. and Mrs. were found in their bedroom, what apparently is their bedroom, on the floor.
Was he laying across her?
No.
Where was the child found?
When will we get
in her
those?
bedroom.
Next 15
Has criminal assault upon her been confirmed at this time?
No, it has not been. I don't know where that information came from.
Is there anything that would suggest it in your investigation?
I can't say.
1966, Jerry, Linda, and their 4-year-old little girl, Debbie, murdered in their Bridgetown home. They were all stabbed to death over and over again.
But here's the problem. The first 48 hours, lost. Monday, Jerry doesn't make his flight. The garbage cans stay out by the street. But all day Monday, other than some curious neighbors, nothing. Tuesday, same thing.
Finally, 2 days after the murders, the 2 neighbors seen in this picture go to check on the Briccas and find their bodies. 54 years later, the case is still unsolved. But J.T. Townsend, a Cincinnati historian and author of Summer's Almost Gone, has his theories.
Linda Bricca had sexual intercourse the day before her murder with a man. His blood type did not match Jerry's. A sex crime? No. Was it about sex? I believe so.
And you think more than one person was involved?
Cherie, I've gone back and forth on that. Right up until the moment I was in county and I looked at those crime scene photos and I looked at the build on Jerry Bricca. How can one guy with a carving knife from the Bricca set handle Jerry Bricca, who would have obviously fought like a tiger to protect his family?
Townsend has 5 top suspects. 2 are still alive. But his prime suspect is the owner of the former Glenway Animal Clinic, Fred Leininger. He and his wife died from suicide in 2004. Linda worked for Leininger, and it's believed they were having an affair.
She goes to work there. She works Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and she's murdered on Sunday with her family. And you have to wonder, if she doesn't go to work at the Glenway Animal Hospital for Fred Leininger, are we even sitting here talking about this? He lied in his second interview about the last time he saw her. I saw her Wednesday at work. I haven't seen her since. Yet he was seen with her at an archery range on Friday and in a car with her on Saturday before the murders.
Leininger gave 2 interviews to police, then hired an attorney and refused to talk.
Whoever did this wasn't stupid. Usually, people talk. And that's probably the #1 way we catch people, is they can't keep their mouth shut. Whoever did this has kept their mouth shut or died shortly thereafter.
Prosecutor Joe Dieters is determined to solve it. His grandfather was the sheriff at the time. This case is personal in more ways than one.
When you're dealing with a little girl, I mean, that's beyond the pale.
Dieters can't talk about who he thinks did it, but he does think whoever did knew the family, and the 4-year-old knew the killer or killers.
She was a very literate little girl from the materials I read, and she may have recognized this person. And you know, I guess if you don't want witnesses, you're willing to kill a 4-year-old.
54 years ago, but it still haunts neighbors.
The street was all lit up, police cars and flashing lights everywhere.
Because it was close, that doesn't happen in our neighborhood.
Julie Ress was just a girl, 12 years old. Judith Hemmer was newly married and friendly with her beautiful neighbor, who seemed to have it all.
She was outgoing and very confident. Yeah, she had a beautiful smile, pretty eyes.
But on that Sunday night in September of 1966, everything changed. The Cincinnati Strangler was on the loose. 4 women had already been raped and murdered, and then the Briccas were found.
You've got a beautiful wife, a workaholic husband, an adorable child in a nice neighborhood.
Jerry, Linda, and their 4-year-old little girl, Debbie, all stabbed to death inside their home along Greenway Avenue in Bridgetown.
What was the fear like?
Palpable.
J.T. Townsend admits he is obsessed with what happened that night. He spent decades piecing together every horrific detail and writes about the terror in his book, Summer's Almost Gone.
Jerry goes down, is confronted. I think the adults are herded upstairs, possibly at gunpoint, and then the killing started. Jerry undoubtedly killed first. Linda is stabbed on the bed. Big blood stain on the bed. Debbie appeared to have been dragged. She's completely, arms completely out, legs completely out, stuffed animal just out of her reach. We lived up in the suburbs. My mom wanted to get mace. You know, people were getting guard dogs, and it just wasn't supposed to happen here in Cincinnati.
Here we are 54 years later. What are the chances that the killer or killers are even still alive?
Of my top 5 suspects, 2 are still alive.
JT and his army of West Side followers say they won't stop until the evidence is retested, which is where the county's top cop comes in.
I remember this case, this case, because my grandfather was a sheriff. And it would be nice to close the loop on this.
So not only is prosecutor Joe Dieters retesting every piece of evidence in the Bricca case, as we're talking, he gets a call. The ancestry group they used to match DNA did not find a match in the Bricca materials they submitted.
But there are still some hairs that may be tested, and they're going to test those very soon.
We are going to retest them?
Yes, they're going to be tested.
If the person is already dead, and all you needed was DNA, would you be willing to exhume a body?
Yeah, we would.
People just want to know what happened. Isn't that why you keep reading the book, you keep watching the movie and the TV show? You want to know what happened and why. And we don't know.
Doors and windows open and unlocked, and they had never experienced anything like this.
The 3 Briccas were stabbed to death in their home on a Sunday night in September of 1966. Their bodies discovered 2 days later. Detectives questioned more than 300 people about the case. They looked at whether it was a robbery or the fallout from an affair, but have yet to find enough to charge anybody.
It's just a matter of having that one piece that puts it all together. And when you're missing that one piece, it's either you got it or you don't.
50 years later, the tips have slowed, but detectives are still looking for that one piece.
We're actually working on something right now, going back to the technology 50 years ago of simple fingerprints.
But no matter the technology, time has become the biggest issue.
The ones that were in their 20s and 30s are now in their 70s and 80s, and someone who might have very good information that's holding on to that may never get to tell that, so why not now?
50 years is a long time for someone to stay silent, but this box isn't going anywhere, and the story it holds still needs an ending.
The youngest housewives on the block.
She had pretty eyes, and she had a beauty pageant smile. She had a way with people.
In these previously unreleased photos, you can see why Linda, a stewardess for a time, was turning heads. Jerry was a standout Stanford swimmer and successful at Monsanto's Addiston facility. 4-year-old Debbie, precocious. But late on September 25th, 1966, someone ransacked their home. Linda was stabbed 10 times, Jerry 9, Debbie 4. Hers so deep they cut all the way through her body.
Why would someone do this?
To cover something up.
Can you say whether you have what you consider to be any good leads or clues in this case at this point?
Gene? I can't say at this point.
52 years later.
This is Cincinnati's seminal crime, and I don't know if it'll ever go away.
JT Townsend is a true crime author and historian.
Suddenly, the evidence goes away, and what everyone knows as fact goes away, and the rumor takes over.
Right. That's why I wrote this book.
Sheriff Jim Neal granted Townsend full access to the Bricca case file for work on this, a 500-page dissection of the case. In it, he shoots down the persistent rumors.
I think the murder of the child just incensed everybody. Why did they, why, you know, people were thinking this is some kind of robbery gone wrong or some kind. Why did they kill the child? The child could identify at least one of the killers. There's no question in my mind.
Was it a Manson-like cult? It couldn't be.
It wasn't a mob hit. It wasn't a crime during a robbery. It wasn't a serial killer.
The Cincinnati Strangler. That's a whole other story. Maybe it was a Monsanto employee with whom Jerry had clashed.
People are just killed sometimes for just the slightest things, you know, disrespect, you know, slights, rumors, greed.
But there is something about one suspect, veterinarian Fred Leininger, for whom Linda worked for just 3 days in the week before her death.
A piece of tape found on Jerry Bricca's face, one of the few things that didn't belong on the crime scene, came back as medical or veterinary tape. This is what blows my mind, Evan. That if this suspect did it, and he continued to run his business over here till 1995, if you kill 3 people, what part of your brain do you store that in when you go on with your life?
An evidence bag in the case file says it contains his hair samples, but he refused to cooperate with investigators and killed himself in 2004. Townsend believes he didn't act alone. Witnesses told investigators they saw 2 people get in a car outside the house that night. Judith Hemmer agrees.
I think there might have been 2 people because Jerry was muscular, very. I just can't see one person taking them both down.
The sheriff's office tells 9 on Your Side the case is still open, has been reviewed several times, and they hope the book sparks conversation leading to new information.
I really wanted to put all the rumors to bed and get as much factual information out there as I could. But I mean, we're still talking about Jack the Ripper, Lizzie Borden, JFK.
And in Cincinnati, we had the Briccas.
Well, given that the case is well beyond 50 plus years old, there are a lot of assumptions in regards to what happened. Many people think that there was law enforcement screwed up a lot, and there was a lot of problems with the crime scene, or I should say preservation of the crime scene. People thought that maybe the killer was a high-placed person who had connections that kept him out of jail. The killer could have been someone that the couple or one of the adults knew, and they had enough maybe contacts, or they knew of law enforcement techniques where they could cover their tracks. Also, there on the street that the Briccas lived on, Greenway, the houses are 15 feet apart, and so the neighbors may have heard some kind of disturbance. If so, no one said anything. Also, it was a September night where rain had been raining all day, and the temperature was barely in the 60s. By Sunday night, the temperature was in the low 50s, and so windows were shut. There weren't any windows that were open that could have possibly heard any kind of noise. The weather wasn't the only thing also that kept the neighbors inside. There was something going on TV. I believe it was a baseball game or something that was pretty big for the time, and so a lot of people had stayed in that night. Also, police believed that the family knew the murderer because there was no sign of a struggle. There were dresser drawers that were open, and Jerry's wallet was missing, but the motive didn't appear to be robbery. The family had dogs, 2 dogs, but the dogs were sedated at the time of the deaths. Now, Linda Bricca, she worked for a local veterinarian, Dr. Fred Leininger. She worked there part-time. It says that there was rumors that Linda was having some kind of affair with Dr. Leininger. It hasn't been verified, probably never will, especially given the time that, given that it's past 50 years. So, and Linda was said, well, at the time of autopsy, Linda had, there was evidence that she had sexual intercourse a day before her death, but the person that she had intercourse wasn't her husband. The blood type was different. So, we're not sure if it was Dr. Leninger that she had sex with, or if there was another completely different person. If it was another person, no one's never came forth. And also, the house was ransacked. Nothing of value was taken, though. So it looks like more than likely it was a ruse, just to make it appear that it was a robbery. The investigators also believe that the murderer was emotionally involved with the victims, and that they knew the killer due to no signs of forced entries. Also, Dr. Leninger evidence bag contained hair samples and a piece of veterinarian tape that was found on Jerry Bricca's face, which was very strange. How in the world would that be found on Jerry Bricca's face? So whoever did the killing used that veterinarian tape to tape shut Jerry Bricca's mouth. That's why people think that Dr. Leninger had a lot to do with this, if not did it himself or hired someone. Now, when police tried to question Leninger, he retained an attorney and refused to cooperate. Now, he stayed in practice until 1995, and then he and his wife committed suicide in 2004. Not sure why they committed suicide. May have had some long-term illnesses or something, but it wasn't stated why they did that. So, all likelihood the case hasn't been solved by now. More than likely it wasn't. A lot of people think it was Leninger. He's dead, so I guess he's taken those secrets to the grave with him. It's just really sad that the family never received justice.
In churches early in the morning for his intended victims, particularly elderly women who are attending services and upon leaving might be vulnerable to his kind of attack?
Yes, that is a definite possibility. The victim this morning attended communion at St. Peter's Cathedral. She left there around 7:30. Apparently on her way home, this fellow observed her, and it was apparently a crime of opportunity. The victim presented herself, and he just took advantage of it and struck.
For the last 4 years, since 1962, Miss Lula Carrick had lived here, apartment 7 in the Brittany Apartments on West 9th Street. She left here early this morning to go to 6:30 Mass at St. Peter and Chains Cathedral, which is only a few blocks away. It was her habit to go to Mass every morning, sometimes at noon, sometimes at 6:30. She returned after Mass to this building to come back to this apartment. She never reached here. To get to the elevator, Mrs. Carrick had to walk down this dimly lit hallway, which runs to the north side of the building, coming off the front door, which is at street level. She had to come back here to get to this elevator, open the door. This elevator, an automatic one, it's a small one. It's no more than 3 by 3 feet. Whether the killer assaulted Mrs. Carrick as she walked down the hall, or whether he waited to get here inside this small elevator, waited for her here, isn't really known. What is known is that the body of Miss Lula Carrick was found in this elevator at the 5th floor level, which would be 1 floor away from her own apartment.